guys. Today I want to talk to you about something that you might think doesn't influence your project too much, but it actually does. And that is what color thread you use. Now, I think I've mentioned many times before that I prefer Fireline, and that's usually the kind of thread that I use. Fireline comes in the smoke and in the crystal. It also comes in a what's called flame green, which is surprisingly neutral, so that's also an option for you. Once you take it out of the spool and put it next to the beads, it can recede color-wise into the beads quite a bit. But these are the two main things that I use. Some of you, though, out there are probably still using thread. So s-lon, Nymo, 1G, any of those kinds of threads out there, and those come in a much broader range of colors. Most of the time when people are picking their colors, they're picking it because in all bead weaving, there's a little bit of thread that shows in between beads, depending on how the beads are how they're laying in your project. You can see more thread than others. For instance, right angle weave, you can frequently see quite a bit of thread. So people will pick their color to match the color of their beads, which is great. It's a totally good option. If you're using, like me, and you're using Fireline, I use smoke for 95% of my bead weaving because dark colors recede into the background. You won't notice it as much. Whereas if you use the crystal, that color, that white, is really going to pop and attract your eye. And so you're going to notice seeing thread more, which is why the only time I use the crystal, here's the big reason why I'm doing this whole video, is when I'm using some kind of transparent bead. And let me show you what a difference the thread can make when you're using a transparent bead. Let's take a look at these beads here on my table. These two components right here are identical, with the exception of I did use a gold accent bead on the inside of this one and a silver accent bead on this one. But the actual, everything else is the same. And look how much brighter and white the crystals in this one look, where this one, they kind of look a little bit more like a diamond thing. The only difference here is I used the crystal Fireline on this one, and I used the smoke Fireline on this one. And look, they look like they're two different beads. There are two different kind of crystal colors there in the center. When I first offered this up as a kit in one of, this is actually a teaching project right now, and when I did the kits for the people in my classes, I was using the white Fireline in there. But then I started getting feedback from people that they actually preferred the look of the darker Fireline. So now that's what I use with that. And here is a good example of what a thread does to your bead. These are crystal AB size 6 seed beads, so they're transparent. They've just got a little AB. But look at the turquoise undertone in there because I used a turquoise thread. So sure, you can see, you can see the thread on the outside edge here, but you're also seeing it peek through the beads. And if I had used turquoise thread in this piece too, you would get that slight turquoise undertone in the bead. So this really only applies when you're using something that's transparent or it doesn't have to be as transparent as a crystal or a crystal AB. Any light colored bead, like a light colored crystal, Swarovski crystal, you're going to see a little bit of that thread come through. So really the only time that I actually switch from the fire is if I'm seeing enough of that, the fire, from the smoke. If I'm seeing enough of that thread through the crystal that it bothers me, then I'll do a little test piece with the crystal colored Fireline and see if I like that better. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And sometimes I may like the crystal Fireline better with the crystal itself, but other places in the piece that white Fireline is too abrupt, and so I end up going back to the smoke anyway. Because here's the last thing to remember. Let me tell you guys, we are looking at all of these projects right about here, right? Like 3 inches from our nose, because it's all small scale. We're doing all this beadwork. Sometimes you have to take a reality check and go, okay, how am I going to be wearing this? If I'm wearing this pendant and somebody is standing 3 feet away from me, are they even going to see that difference in the fire line? Are they going to see that fire line mark through your crystal? And the answer is most of the time no. I do that to students in my classes sometimes. They'll see a little tiny, flub here, and I'm like, okay, put it on your wrist like you're wearing it as a bracelet. Now can you see it? No. We get a little bit too caught up in this 3-inch category when we really should be looking at the 3-foot category of what we can see and what problems we can see. So I hope that helps you kind of choose your thread. Just, if in doubt, make a little test piece, make a little test swatch like I did here, and compare a couple of them, see which one you like best. It's only going to take you a couple minutes. You don't want to do a whole project and then realize that you're unhappy with the thread color choice that you made. Happy beading!